All right, in this video, I'm going to share a couple other ways that we can create hyperlinks. There's some different types of hyperlinks than what we created in this video a moment ago, where we created a hyperlink between pages. So in the process of doing this, I went to this website, Epicurious, and this is where I found the recipes to the peanut butter and to the brownie and so forth, even though I sort of mangled it in the end. But this is eventually where they all came from. So I want to provide a link to this website. Well, as a side note, as I started to look at this website, I realized that I have misspelled the word recipe in all of my files. And that's certainly unprofessional. So I want to make sure that I update my recipes, which I've spelled with an IES and apparently has no IES. And so the easy way to do this is I could come into each of my pages and update them manually, or I can utilize this option here in my menus. I can go down to Edit, and I can replace in files, and notice that it's plural. So if I click on that, I have the ability to search for the thing that I want to change. I'm just going to copy it here. I'm going to paste it in here. And then notice that it finds all of those matches, and I could click on each of those matches and it's going to pull it up in that appropriate place in the file if I want to take a peek at it. And so if I put replace in here, you can see that if I put the proper spelling, I'm going to make it in lowercase here, just for a visual, recipe, spell it correctly. You can see that I've got a little bit of a problem going on here, because here's what it's going to replace. So my capital misspelled recipe is going to be changed to lowercase recipe, which is not what I want. So I'm going to go back and make that capital. And that all seems well and good, except when it comes down here to the name of my image. So I definitely don't want to change that from a lowercase to a capital. So we want to keep our cases the same. So you have this little icon right here that says match the case. And so now what I'm doing is changing all capital, only capital recipe misspelled to a capital correctly misspelled. So now that we've found that and everything looks the way that I feel like it should, we can click on this little icon that says replace all. And I'm going to then replace all 6 occurrences. Yes. And so now I should have some appropriately spelled recipes. Now I could go and change the image. The only lowercase, let's just see, the only lowercase image recipe that I have, let's do a misspelled lowercase recipe, is the image name. So if I put in the lowercase image, that's the lowercase recipe, that's the image. And I would have to go in and change the image name as well, which I could do. So I think I'll go ahead and I'll just change this manually since there's only one, but recognize now that I also have to change the name of that image because the name is changed in here. I have to make sure that this image name matches the image name here. So I can right click on here and choose rename and then change that to the appropriately spelled one as well. So now everything is spelled properly, and I feel like that's a little bit more professional. Excellent. All right, so now that really wasn't the point of the video, but I noticed it in the process, so that's a good practice to, or good little tidbit of how you can solve a problem. Okay, so now the problem is, or the learning opportunity is, I wanted to be able to, I'm going to link to this external web page. All right. So just kind of an FYI, if this is helpful, there's a lot of real estate being used here in my Windows Explorer. And so I'm going to click on this little page looking icon, looks like a pair of pages on top of each other. And that's going to toggle open and closed my Explorer, my Project Explorer. So that just gives me a little bit of real estate to play in, so I can put both of these on the same screen and see both at the same time. And I'm currently working in the index file. So notice there's many tabs open, and that's perfectly fine, but I'm working on the index. And so in the index, I want to create a link to this website. Okay, so we already know how to do a link. That's with an anchor tag. So it's very similar with one exception. So in order to create this link, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click in the URL address bar of this website that I want to create a link to. So I'm going to click in here and highlight the whole thing and copy it, including the HTTP or HTTPS, whatever happens to be the hypertext protocol. So I'm going to copy that whole address in. And then in my anchor tag, I need that whole anchor address to be pasted in there. So the whole address. So I'm going to hit A and tab. That's going to bring up my hypertext reference, and inside the quotations, then Control V, and I'm going to make sure that I put in that entire web address, including the HTTP or the HTTPS part, because we are no longer linking to a relative page relative to each other, but now to an external page. And so we need to have that protocol in place so that the browser knows where to go get this address, this domain is what that's called. Okay. And then in between the anchor tags, I need to put in a link, a thing to the user so they know to click here. So I'll put Epicurious, because that way they'll know that they're going to that website. Epicurious. I don't know how to say that, but it's my video, so I can say it however I want to. All right, so now what will happen, let's go back to our index page. Well, I'm not on the index page, so let's go to the index page. And now we see a link to that site. So if I click on this link, we should see there's that website. Excellent. Well, almost excellent. And the almost part comes into play in the fact that the browser loaded that link to this new website it got rid of my website. Well, that's not really optimal, because if I'm building a website for my business and I provide a link to some other website, I don't want to lose my user. I don't want them to go away from my site. They can always, if I can count on them hitting that backspace key, but they may or may not. So I'd rather not lose them from my site. I don't want to overwrite my site with the link site. Here's my point. I also noticed that I didn't put a little separator here, so I'm going to add a little pipe right there. Okay, so what we can do to prevent that from happening is add an extra attribute. And so in this case, I'm going to add an attribute called target equals _blank. And what target _blank will do is, let's just see. So now I'm going to click on Epicurious, and you'll see that it opens a new tab, leaving my current website intact, but still providing the link to the external website that we provided with that anchor tag. So I would always recommend, if you're sending a user elsewhere, to give them a new tab. If you're sending them someplace within your own site, then you definitely don't want to put a target blank, right? I don't want to put a target, I could, but I don't want to do this to my user. I don't need to have them open up 12 pages of my website. That doesn't make any sense. So now that's going to open up a cookies tab. That doesn't really make sense. And that's just getting cumbersome that they're going to have all these tabs open, unless you feel like you want them to have lots of your tabs open. That's up to you. But for sure, when we're creating a link to an external web page, let's do target blank so we don't lose them from our page. All right, so the next hyperlink I'm going to create in we're going to make a footer type of feeling. And we're going to see a better way to do a footer here and eventually. But for now, I'm just going to make a paragraph. And in this paragraph, I want them to be able to email me. I want to put in, like you always see in a footer, an email address, right? And so I'm going to put in email me, and then my address, markleyk@otc.edu. Excellent. So how do I create this to be a hyperlink? Well, just like you've done up here. So we're going to create this. I'll show you what I mean. Why would I want to email as an anchor tag? I will show you. href equals, and what we're going to do is we're going to put mail to : and then put that in quotations, and then end our anchor tag, and then in here you might put markleyk@otc.edu. So what is this providing us? Well, let's see. So if I refresh this page and I look down in my footer, I have a hyperlink to Markley K. So remember that this part that's showing up in blue indicates that it's an unvisited link. The fact that it is a clickable link is definitely visible because of the underscore, and we've put it in an anchor tag. But because we've added this mail to with an email address, we're telling the browser to go find the person's email client, whatever that email client happens to be. Now, my personal computer that I'm showing here is not hooked up to an email client, but if it had been, it would have opened up the email client. It would have opened up a new window with this address already put into the to of that email. And so creates this particular hyperlink using mail to will create a link to whoever is looking at this web page. It'll create a link to their personal whatever that computer's email client defaults to, and it'll open up a new message with this address in the to of that message. Hope that makes sense. Excellent. All right, let's add a second. Now, our last link on here, we have this mail to link. Well, we can do the same thing with telephone, which isn't really going to help on my computer here, but it would certainly help if I was on a cell phone. So if I was viewing this site on a cell phone instead. So let's utilize our special characters again. I'm going to use the special character BULL, bull, which is going to give me a little bullet icon. Let's just see. Excellent. And now let's use the same concept for a email or for a phone number. So again, it's an anchor tag. And our href in this case is going to be, let me kind of spread this out, is going to be, I'm going to put in here the phone number. So 417-447-8297. That's my office number. So I'm going to copy that. And instead of using mail to like we did here, we're going to use TEL for telephone. And then we paste in their telephone number. And so if this had been on an actual phone and we clicked on this link, it would have pulled up, it's looking for a telephone, but we don't have one on this computer. But if it had been on my cell phone, it would have pulled up the phone client and would have started to try and call that phone number. So different types of hyperlinks to do different things. In this video, we've seen that we can create a hyperlink to an external web page by putting in the protocol, the HTTPS, and the entire address of that external web page. We also saw that we can use mail to do a hyperlink to the default email client. And we also can use a tel colon with a phone number, which would open up the default phone client if we were on a telephone, for example. And as I'm talking here, I also noticed one other thing that would be really helpful. I'm noticing that it's taking me a lot to slide back and forth here. So wouldn't it be nice if I could, let's see, I could go under File, and I'm going to choose, thought it was under File, maybe it's under, oh, now that I have all these big ideas, now I can't find it. File, Preferences, nope, now I don't know where, shucks, I might have to do that in another video. Edit, selection, oh, I bet it's under View. Yep, so if I look under View, took me a moment to find it, View and Word Wrap, that's going to be very handy because what that'll do is instead of extending that line past where I have to scroll back and forth, it just brings it down so I can see it a little bit clearer, and you can see that that's evidenced here with a big gap between 19 and 20 because this is all line 19. Anyway, so that was a little bit extras as we did a file and replace, and we also did a word wrap. But the main gist of this conversation was that we saw that there was other types of hyperlinks that we can create.